All right, so given a decent sand, there might be some areas where you have real fine details, like especially in and around sorts of these arches here, and the fronts and the backs of the wings. You might want to grab one of these little tiny files, and that will give you a bit of access, give you a bit of a nicer finish, a bit more control over your sanding in those sorts of spaces. So now, in and around this back wing and the back one especially because it's a bit bigger, you probably don't have to worry heaps about the finish on that because it will be entirely covered by that rear wheel. So that one, less critical about the surface finish around it. I'd rather that you don't lose that feature if you have such a feature there. I'd rather you don't lose that and have it a little bit rougher than necessary. So anyway, this is the point now where you want to fill any dents or scratches or chips that you might have in your car, especially if you've had to glue a wing back on. You might also want to putty around that, or body fill around that. So we use just some wood filler, just white stuff. Now I have had people in the past really wet down this wood filler and coat the entire car. Could give it a nice consistent coat so you can paint. That is possible, but I feel like the lacquer is that does that sort of job for you. So in this case, I've got a tiny little chip here on my front wing, which I'm just going to put a bit of filler on. So I'm just going to scrape it on with a scraper here. Now, if you have any machine marks still on your car, this is the point where you want to sand them out or fill them out, because the next step is going to be doing some priming, and no amount of primer is going to cover up those machine marks. So make sure they're completely gone, and please bring your car to me. I'll mark up on it where you might have some dents, or the areas that I look at sanding. So bring your car over, I'll use a pencil and I'll draw on the car the areas where I think needs sanding. And the idea is that you go away and you sand those pencil marks off, and hopefully sand the car to a point where it's good to go. So just applying a little bit of filler. The fronts and backs of these side pods really soak up the paint and the lacquer. So those are the surfaces that you want to sort of make sure nicely lacquered, nicely filled and primed ready for paint. Okay, just going to try and create a nice smooth flat edge on there. Now with filler, I've seen people just cake it on. You don't need very much. The more you put on, the more you have to sand off. The more you put on, the less, or the further away it is from the actual design that you've created. So less is better, and also dries quicker. So just gonna tiny bit more on this front wing and the back of that front wing. So if you don't have any dents or scratches in your car, you probably can skip this step, but I like to do it just to give a nice coat onto the, just to seal up some of those pores in the timber around in the end grain. Okay, so we are filled. We are ready for. We have to wait for it to dry now, and this will take a little bit longer than your paint or your lacquer. So the lacquer took probably about half an hour for it to be nice and dry. So what we'll do now is we'll leave this to dry. I'll get some more photos, add that to my portfolio. You can't have too many photos in your folio, so I'm gonna pop it back on a stick, maybe put it in the rack and get that to dry. Next stage will be giving this a coat of primer. As I said, make sure all your machine marks are out. Now this is the stage that you want to get it all out. You don't want to be putting a coat of primer on it and then having to sand those features out, because you're just undoing the work, undoing the paint job or the priming preparation job. So get it 100% sand at this point. You want to get it real nice, smooth, ready for paint. Okay, so my putty's all dry, as I said. Didn't take very long because I only did a real thin coat. If you're doing thick bits, it's going to take forever. So I've left this maybe half an hour or so, and it's all good. So just using some 320 now, just to give it a bit of a light sand, get off any excess that I didn't need. And I'll just give the whole thing a rub over with the 320. And this will bring it up to a point now where it'll be ready for paint. Just going to do a quick time lapse, 320, and then we'll get a coat of paint on it.